Howdy y'all, how y'all doing? Y'all doing okay or no? Or is everything not doing okay? Is everything going badly? If so, why aren't you doing something about it? Which is one of the things that I like to ask myself sometimes. What are you doing about it? You got so much to bitch about, you're not doing nothing to change it, huh, motherfucker? It's almost as if you enjoy the suffering. Something I do notice amongst people, actually, is there's more people that would rather complain about their problems than actually change it. Because it's funny. You'll throw that at them like, and you can give them an example how to get out of it, and they're always like, yeah, anyway. So it's like they don't even want to try, because there's validation in that. We've learned this behavior as children, so it really depends on the person and what they've been through. I find that as I've gotten older and as I'm kind of, looking more into stuff, depending on what the situation is, I see myself noticing all these little things about people. The things that they do and the things that they say, and I'm starting to kind of piece together who people are, who they truly are. And a lot of the times, the shit that we go through when we're younger is definitely something that will create the adult that we will end up being, right? So that's the obvious part. But what I mean is, like, how do I word this? Maybe it's like, I try not to, I don't want to give people's shit away is the problem. So I'm trying to, see if I can make something up real quick. So it's like some people had childhoods that, because of a situation with their parents, maybe their parents were either abusive, or maybe they were super controlling, or maybe they fought each other, they got in a lot of arguments and stuff, or whatever it is. And so we say that this perhaps child learned to run away from that and hide. Well, that's one thing learned, that we could say escapism. And so whenever a problem comes, they run away from it. But the other negative side of that is they end up seeing everything outside of their little world as all these fucking people, and their problems. Or they begin to see that everyone is looking at them and blaming them for everything, right? And in reality, that's not the true situation, but they feel that way because they were never taught, as they went and hid away, they were never taught how to handle the outside world and the pressures of it. They instantly see it as a negative thing. I think I remember talking about before where it's the only time the world ever hit you was negatively. You're in your own isolated world, and all of a sudden, when something comes upon you, it's it's horrible, it's so bad, it's so negative, I hate it, everyone's this, everyone else is that, and people this, and people are assholes, and you hear a lot of that. Now, that's a huge cultural problem, because you can see it amongst the people nobody likes anyone, but they like their little animals, their little slave animals they have in their house, right? That's just how weird people are. It's always everyone else. You notice that? It's always everyone else. They're the bad driver. They're the grumpy people. They're the ones always doing this. People. And we notice this about other people. But we never really look at ourselves in any way, shape, or form. And what kind of repercussions does that have on the whole? Why are people so surprised when you do nice things? Why is that a shocker? Why is it whenever I do something nice for people, they're shocked? You know what I mean? You shouldn't be shocked. It's fine. You know what I mean? The things that we've learned. And all these things that we've learned from our childhood, you do see them carry that forward. And so, one of the big things that I'm learning is to spot these different things. Some people like to bottle up their shit. And whenever you kind of notice that they got a problem, they kind of get an attitude with you. Because you're reminding them they have shit that they can't, or they think they can't fix. Mostly because they feel like you would look at them negatively because of that. So if you talk to someone, if you have a friend or a relative or whoever, if you have someone in your life and they seem numb to life, they seem like things are kind of like they're blasé about stuff, or they're like they act like they don't give a fuck, like, yeah, I'll just run away, who cares, they act numb. If you ever find with someone like that, whenever you confront them and say, hey man, like, what's going on, what's wrong, and if they kind of get mad at you for whatever fucking reason about you pointing out something within them, they feel attacked in some way, shape, or form. And it doesn't have to be an outward attack. Sometimes people don't they don't like really, what's the word? They don't like act out really, incredibly, but sometimes when people feel attacked, they feel like you're probably judging them in that moment of what they're doing and what they're saying and how they're, acting. They can't fathom the idea that you give a fuck and you're just making sure to show them that you care about them in some way, shape, or form. That's something that they learned as kids. Something that kind of was instilled in them. Sometimes people always hear, like, you get it together. Quit fucking complaining. Quit bitching. Some people hear that growing up. And so whenever you come at them with, what's your problem, they revert back to that. And they get mad again. Now, that's not always the case, but that can be the case sometimes. Also, I just want to point this out real quick. Disclaimer. I'm not someone that you should, like, totally trust on all this, because I'm not a fucking psychologist or anything. This is just the kind of things that I'm picking up on as I'm going through life. You can see that amongst people. One thing I also notice you can see amongst people too is sometimes people hold on dearly or push down very deep the worst things that have ever happened to them. And I think what that can do is it can create a shell of a person. I actually see it on some people where it's like they've gone through so much trauma that the only thing surfaced, it becomes kind of like a scared animal. Like there's not much more going on besides that. I don't know if you've ever noticed that before on people, but the look in the eyes are all wide like this, and it's like they don't ever go any deeper than quiet thoughts in their head. And they've kind of stopped questioning things happening to them, and they stopped questioning things around them, and they've reverted to a lower state of a human being. That to me is insane. That can go to that length, and some people try so hard not to process the things that happen to them. It's one of the big things I explore within the story, within my main character Eris. Some of the things that he's going through, he's basically learning how to shove it down. Because when shit hits the fan, people put a lot of weight on the idea of, you become a burden if you sit and are weakened by the world. You have to just like fucking turn your head off, and you got to continue to go forward. There'll be time to process later. Our modern world's a bit weird because a lot of the dark traumas that happen are not as bad as they used to be. The world's definitely getting a lot easier. We're not being exposed to the realities of life like we used to in any way, shape, or form, whether that's hardship or whether that's like just seeing death. So people are kind of becoming, it's easy to become numb when you're not surrounded by a reality. And because of that situation, you can kind of notice it within people. And so like with Eris, he's being really thrust into this like very violent very violent world, at least the way he will see it. In reality, it's completely normal, but it was my intent to say he lived in a sheltered place, he lived behind these safe walls, he lived this kind of easy life, and now he doesn't have it, and he's at the whim of all the darkness around him. And he's got a lot of horrible fucking things happening to him and the people he cares about, but he does never have enough time. There's never enough time for him to dwell on it. And when he gets those moments of dwelling, it's quickly interrupted with the reality of life. Now, it's kind of going back to that thing that we've lost when it comes to our society and what our society kind of constructs around us, and that is civilization. Civilization is the idea that we don't have to toil necessarily, go out, hunt our own food, hope to God we don't fucking die, hope we don't get sick, this and that, and we're at the will of the world. Well, no longer, we are to a degree, but we are within the safe walls. If you get really sick, you can go to the hospital. If you need food, you go get a job, and all that fucking bullshit. You can get food that is pre-packaged for you in the stores, and snacks. And if you want entertainment, there are just ways to entertain yourself. We live in a society that's negated from the idea of survivalism, so we don't know how to do that. And the reality is, when you're thrust out of that life, when you're thrust out of the civilization, the concept of it, what happens when you go back to it? What do you bring back? You're taken out of the world and you're put into the real world where people fucking die, where the world is harsh, where it's not easy to just be okay. And you don't have time to sit and dwell on shit. You don't have time to want to be entertained and all this bullshit that we have now, or fabricated kind of problems with equality or whatever it may be. We don't have time for that fake shit. But then you come back to it. What do? Dude, why is it being so fucking gay? What do you do with that? You were lived in this world that gave everything to you on a fucking platter. Then you, for this long period, whether it was months or years, went into survival mode and saw horrible, tremendous things. And you saw things that were shocking. You saw things that pushed you to your fucking limit. I don't know if you've ever seen anyone that's like, they mentally break. Like, you go to this point, whether it's extreme violence or it's like, witnessing something that makes you uncomfortable. People have a breaking point, and you can see it, man. They'll snap and they'll like fucking revert back to this like almost childlike state, if you will. And you see it a lot in like the people that I know that talk to me. So guys that were in combat, guys that were in the police force, or EMT and paramedic, the difference I know. Those people kind of walk into that world, but they have to kind of go back and revert back to this whole civilized life. That's the kind of issue that can cause issues. And I think about my friends, and I think about them having to endure such of these dark things, but when they come back, it's like, okay, turn that off. Turn that switch off. Let's be okay. Celebrate 4th of July. Go over there and have fun. Go have fun parties and go do these stupid fucking things or whatever it is that people tell you to go do, and drink beer and watch sports and just have a good job, make friends at the job, go play cards later, all this shit that like doesn't fucking matter is merely a distraction. A lot of the guys can't handle that. A lot of the guys don't want to handle that. They see the phony. Or sometimes they don't see the phony, but they feel left out. They feel like they are the ones that can't integrate back into society. And so that's why you see a lot of suicides in people that, you know, either join the military or people that are the police force or people that are, you know, emergency, you know, like EMTs and firemen and all that shit. I'm not saying statistically you see the most, but there are a lot of people that my friends tell me about that have committed suicide in their lives. So it's an integration issue, possibly. And so the idea in the book that I explore is like, how does that happen? What does someone go through in their mind when they feel that way? So when Eris is coming back down from this living a life of fucking fear and running and not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing where he's going, not knowing what to do, when is he going to have to eat again, is he going to survive, all of this dark shit will just turn off. What happens to you then? Well, I think a couple things happen, and the biggest one is processing. You're not distracted anymore. There's not like, well, we can't think about it, we gotta do this, so we can't think about it, we gotta do that. Like, there's no time to dwell on this shit. Like, this is too dangerous right now, or whatever it is. That's not there anymore. You can fabricate it. I've seen people, they can try to fabricate that. They make their lives busier and harder than they have to be. It's a great distraction, but that doesn't help. So we kind of go back to what I was saying previously. People don't want to handle these things. They'd rather complain about it. They'd rather, well, you know, like, I don't want to fix it. Is basically what they're saying. They don't feel that way, but that's what they're saying. What are you supposed to do for that? You know, what are these people supposed to do in their lives? I don't know what the fuck is wrong with this. It does not work today. No internet? But anyway, how do we solve all this? And so with Eris's journey, that's my biggest thing. It's like, what does he do? At what point now does he kind of make a change for himself? And how do you identify wanting to make a change? What is it that, you know, they always say, like, the only person that can change anything is yourself. You have to want it, right? You talk about someone with an alcohol problem, which is a whole thing connected to this, by the way, or weed or anything else. People numb themselves to it. How do you tell them to stop? You can't. They have to want to. So how do you fabricate that? How do you make a want happen within yourself? Because there are times that you can say, you know, I really feel like I should do this, but there's no part of me that wants to make a change, even though I know I'll be much happier, I'll be better off. That part, that reverts back to another situation. And this can either be perhaps, this is me speculating, okay? This could be perhaps another sort of psychological harm that was done as a child, or in your darkest moment if you indeed did do something in your life that was very traumatic. How do you make a change in that situation? Well, it comes down to not wanting to make a change. Well, what would cause someone to not want to change something about the negative parts of themselves? There's sometimes it can be they're just truly not, they truly don't understand that making that change is for the best. That could be part of it. It could be someone saying, you could, like the one they always use all the time, is the self-esteem. You know, they have low self-esteem, so that's why they don't seek to make their lives better, because they feel better when they're a piece of shit. You know, whatever people say. That can be another thing, yeah. But the thing about people is that they're all so vastly different from one another. We all share a common bond. We all share a kind of an understanding with each other, but we all are so vastly different. How can you reach people like that? And it's like, the only way that you can possibly do that is lay something out before them and let them decide to walk the road or not. So for me, for instance, I don't think I know I haven't had the roughest life. I didn't really have like I mean, I guess compare, like, it doesn't, I don't know, it's hard because you compare yourself to someone with a horrible fucking life, you're like, well, shit, it ain't bad for me. So it's like, I don't know exactly what is and what isn't right, but in my life, there are things that I've gathered, there are things that I've learned to understand that led me to believe that maybe making a change isn't even worth it. So in my own journey, how do I word this? I found that, like, there was a very much what's the point kind of attitude. What's the fucking point? You know, like, of making something better. Because, like, what my mind wants to do is say, like, you're gonna die anyway, so what's the fucking point of fighting this? You're just delaying the inevitable. What's the point of, like, taking your life and extending it, for instance? Of living longer because you're living healthier. What's the fucking point of that? You're still gonna die. Did you obtain something in that extra 5 to 10 years of a cognizant mind? Did you obtain anything different? No, you just were here longer. And so it's like, in my mind, I'm like, well, that must be a couple things. It's like, you were here longer to maybe obtain more personal relationships with people, and you want to be here longer with people and share the world with them. But in my mind, I'm always, well, what's the fucking point of that? So what I do notice about, and this is hard for me to admit, but it's true, I look at the men in the Baker family that so my cousins, uncles, I don't have, the grandparents and all this stuff, all these Baker men. And each one of them has done something in their own way. And this is where I'm going to be led to this kind of idea. But in my mind, each one of them gave up on life because they died in their 50s. My grandfather died in I think it was his late to mid 40s. And then that guy I talked about recently who passed away, who would have been like my cousin, he was 54, which is the same age as my dad. And I learned more and more about him because I ended up meeting with my great uncle. I found him and I've been talking to him, and I'm going to go and see him tomorrow. Now, he's alone, and it's a whole ass thing. I want to be there with him. But what he explained about his son was he basically just gave up. He was getting overweight, and he didn't do anything about it. He had heart problems, heart issues, and he didn't do anything about it. And he said, my great uncle, he said that his son told him, like, he just doesn't really have the will to even care. Like, what's the point? And so he died. He had a heart attack because I don't know what he meant by this, but he kept saying he only had like 25% of his heart, and this and that. I don't know the medical situation because I don't know. But whatever he meant by that, he just said he just gave up. He said, fuck it. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to keep fighting. And from all the things I learned about, he's a very caring, compassionate, and good person to everybody. But when he went back home to himself, he just didn't want to keep fighting. My grandfather, he died at work. He didn't want to take care of himself. He got diabetes, and he's like, I don't give a fuck. He literally said that. So my great uncle was telling me, he's like, he would call him like, you should fucking get on the insulin. You need it. And my grandfather was like, I don't fucking care. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm good. And so what happened? He went into a diabetic coma because he loved eating donuts. He loved having sweet things. He didn't give a fuck. He wanted so badly that thing that he said, I don't care if it fucking kills me. I don't even want to be here anyway. And he didn't even try to fight. And that affected my dad growing up. not having a father when he became a father. I talked about that a little bit. So it's like, I have this shit in my head and I feel the same way. I'm just like, what's the fucking point? You know, like, I don't believe me. I will never, ever, you know, do anything to hurt myself. That's not who I am. But it's like, what I'm trying to say is I understand their mindset. It's just like, you know, who cares? What's the fucking point? You can do all these things, you can meet all these people, you can do this great stuff, you can make this money, and you can have this art, and you can do this cool things, and you can be happy, and you can go vacationing, you can go traveling, you can do all this fucking shit. But then it's like, what if it doesn't bring you anything? You know, you look at some of the famous celebrities that killed themselves, they had a lot of negative things, but they had so much good stuff, and it didn't even fucking matter. Didn't matter. So it's like, for me, I feel that so deeply that I don't really give a hell of living like that. So what does that make me do? Well, that means I have to search really hard to find what those people were fucking missing. And for instance, for the people in my family and the people I care about that are no longer here, I have to do this to find the answer that they couldn't. Because me and Jacob talk about it, and we always talk about the family wound. We talk about like this clan, this Baker clan, just this one group right here. I mean, my other half is just as bad, but we have to fix these fucking problems that all these people are having, that this whole group of Bakers had. We have to fix that so going forward they don't feel that way. So it's like my journey, especially through these fucking videos, has been, how do I find that thing? How do I do that thing within myself that makes me feel like this does matter? Because the hardest part is you can get so distracted. You could be distracted for fucking years. You could be distracted for 50 years. But then when you're quiet enough and you just don't think for a minute, that's when it creeps back in. And that's the problem. People just think like you just go do things, you go travel, you go have fun, you go listen to live music, you go fucking, I don't know, skydiving, you go do all these fucking things. That's just distractions. It's like when you go back to it and you don't allow yourself to get drunk because, you know, okay, when I get home I gotta make sure I drink or whatever, or I gotta smoke weed or whatever the fuck people do. When you go back and your distractions are all gone and all quiet, and you just sit there with it, can you live with that? And a lot of people can't. And in fact, I'm going to say most people can't. It's just most people know how to hide it. Most people know how to run away from it. Because, you know, growing up, you're led to believe that there are people that are normal and then there are depressed people. And they have a mental illness. That's what you're led to believe. And you're like, no. We're just aware. Everyone else is numb. They're stupid to it. Not because they're idiots. And I use the word stupid in a sense of ignorant to the realities of it. We all feel this. I think it has a lot to do with civilization, and I think it has a lot to do with the way our society is constructed. Let's be honest. If it wasn't, then a lot of people wouldn't be dealing with this. That's the issue at stake. And again, I feel it. I know it. There are so many times where I sit and think like, you know, maybe not necessarily about, I don't really have suicidal thoughts, but a lot of the times for me it's like, what's the fucking point of trying to do something? Whether that be my book stuff, for instance, writing or drawing for, you know, something, or making one of these videos, or whatever the fuck else I do. I don't even know. I study for the book, or you know, the things I do that I'm show in the videos here. Most of the time I don't want to fucking do it. Honestly. It's so much effort to like fucking will myself into, come on man, let's go work on our book. Come on, let's go make a video. Let's do this. It's like, it's so fucking hard to do sometimes. because it doesn't feel like it's hard to do because I want to sit and be suicidal. That's like the stigma. That's the fucking stereotype. It's more, it's hard to give a fuck sometimes. It's hard to like want to be doing something for better. And that goes to that part of the conversation I said. It's like wanting to make a change. How do you do that? How do you fix that? Because I myself feel at the whim of it. Like, how the fuck do I will myself into wanting to do this book? I know every single thing about this book is going to help me. This book will lift me out of the fucking darkness that I feel enveloped by. What's holding me back? Is it indeed the actual darkness, which would be a representation of depression? Or is it something more? Like, what part of myself? Because, man, the whole I just keep doing it thing ain't cutting it. Where you just gotta constantly, like, fucking charge through those feelings and just do it. Because I fucking try, believe me. But there's some parts of me that's just like, as I'm charging through it and doing it, it's just kind of, you know, you're just gonna feel this way tomorrow. You're not gonna, like, you feel great now, but it's hard to go back and like, you remember last time we felt great, let's do it again. Like, because it gets tiresome to constantly convince yourself. And I think that's where the giving up happens. And the thing I was saying about them was passively killing yourself. So my grandfather and my cousin, basically, they passively killed themselves, right? Technically, because they could have survived, but they did nothing to do it. In fact, they did everything to help the situation get worse. That's passively killing yourself, man. You know what you're doing. They know what they did. So at what point, you know, are you going to do that? Because it's like you constantly are bombarded with trying to make yourself feel better. Try to be better. Take this fucking medication. Or you goddamn, you know, I don't know, you start exercising. And you start getting more active. And you start meditating and all this. It's like, it feels good for a little bit. But then that shit comes back because you were just distracting yourself from it. It's waiting there, you know. And I'm 32, so I haven't lived a huge chunk of life, but I've done things. You know what I mean? I've tried to get away from it. I tried being physically active, and that's cute, and it was great in those moments, but I went back home and feeling the same way. You know, I changed my diet. Didn't really do anything. I didn't, you know what I mean? Like, I just was like, okay, now I'm just eating better. And I feel physically, I don't know, okay. Feel a little bit better, but like my mind, it's not my fucking body, it's my mind, you know. Or just changing up lifestyles things, or quitting smoking, or I fucking stopped smoking weed. I never had drinking problems, so I didn't have to stop that. I made certain changes in my routines and stuff. I tried not to think negatively. I would channel my mind to not allow it. I would force myself to go back to this positive stuff, or I would look deeply into why I would act the way I do, and I would kind of find problems in my life and see how that affected me as an adult, and I would explore the aspects of my own nature in which the way I react to things, and try to change, you know, like, okay, make sure, you know, or in my relationship, I communicate more when I feel some of these problems. I talk about it now. I don't hide it away. Or if I have problems in a relationship, I will say things. I've done a lot of stuff. But again, it goes back to like, but it's still there. This feeling of not wanting to do anything. This feeling of not giving a fuck. Of not wanting to. It feels like I want to run away from it, but it's got its fucking grips on me, you know, and it just keeps trying to pull me back in. And that's how I feel. So I'm like, well, shit, I'm not some phenomena. I'm another person. If I'm feeling this, a lot of people are feeling this too. And it's just hard to make sense of what the hell is going on. You know, what exactly is causing all this stuff? And that's why I was talking about, you know, the way society's structured. I was talking about maybe our childhood traumas. I was talking about, you know, people that have, you know, seen some traumatic things and now they have PTSD or whatever the hell it's called now. We have all these things that we can kind of explore to find the answer, but it's still it's hard to find. You think you can find it, but then all of a sudden it's like, okay, but then maybe this too. It's always ever changing. So where does that leave us? The only thing I can think of is some sort of spiritual wound. You know, something that's out of the realm of science that they're like, oh, we're not touching that. That's where I'm like, maybe it's in there. Maybe there's some sort of answer within that. And whatever that may mean, whether that's like your true consciousness or your spirit, your ghost, or your fucking whatever the terms are, I don't know. We'll just call it your spirit. What if that's the wound? How can that be wounded? If it's eternal, if it's slips the bonds of this fucking world and moves on to the next, what can be wounded in that? The vessel? This? Does that affect our consciousness? Our spirit? Or does that itself have some sort of wound? Why is it that some people just can't be okay? Regardless of where they grew up, or what may have happened to them, or their ethnicity, their fucking, like, you know, economic situation, like where they are financially, or God knows what else. Like, why is this universal? You put me next to someone that's a different skin color, had way more money than me, and grew up in a totally different country. Why does he feel the same way? We have nothing in common besides that. Which is why misery seeks fucking company. God damn it. That's kind of just, I don't know, man. It's so difficult, these thoughts. And a lot of the times people don't really want to go into this. I imagine there's a lot of people that tune this video out once I start getting tough. It's a reaction. They think it's like a virus. They're like, oh God, don't talk about that. You're going to bring me down, dude. You're going to bring me down. And it's like, you were already down. You just didn't know it. What is this, you know? That's kind of the thing that I really, really try my best to explore. Because, man, it's so hard to find an answer to all this. It feels almost impossible, in fact. But it's not. There are answers to all this darkness. It's just, I myself don't know how to get there yet. But through the writing is the best way that I know how to begin. I have a character that's going through it too. Maybe that'll help somebody understand something. You know, or this channel. Maybe one person will see a certain video and they'll just trigger an event that takes 100 years, but eventually something's solved. Who knows, man? That's the tumbling effect, but fine. I did not plan any of this. Whatever, that was, just channeled that. Okay. It's amazing how you can find parts of yourself when you just let go, you know? What would I fucking call this video? Talking about depression? No, because no one will go, I'm not gonna watch that. Our daily struggle, we'll call it that. I don't know, something to think about, something to kind of ponder. Would love to hear more thoughts about it with anyone. I don't care who it is. It'd be kind of cool. Whoever the fuck you guys are, I don't even know. It shows me a few of you. Shows me a few, but not everybody, so I don't know. Should say something, bro. Put it down in the comment section, hit a like and hit a subscribe or whatever it is. Hit the notification bell, and I got that dumb little fucking thing. Boom! Clicks on it. Like, no. No, I'm not doing that because of that. No, I'm not gonna ever say that, but it'd be cool. If you want to talk about it, fucking I'll do it. Or privately. I'm down for that too. I don't care. You know, I'm down to, we don't need to boast our shit. We can talk privately. That's fine by me. You know, I'm looking for real, man. I'm not looking for that fake shit. You know, like, let everyone know who I am. Like, no, fuck that. I'm okay to hide some things. It's fine. Anyway,